Hey, Ovi, I'm so excited to get to talk with you today. It's been almost 5 years since the BB21 finale. How's life been for you since leaving the Big Brother house?
Hey Josh, thanks for having me here. Super excited to be talking with the Big Brother Spoilers account. I've been watching y'all stuff for a long time, so just to be kind of full circle moment now, because I used to be on the other end of things, looking at all these accounts and trying to keep up with it, and now get to be interviewed by it. Man, it's crazy to think it's been 5 years already. It almost feels like a different lifetime ago. 2019 went through the whole basically a whole structural change in the Big Brother system after our season, had a pandemic, just so much stuff. But things have been good. I can't complain. It's all blessings all aside. Got recently engaged, moved to New York, beforehand 3 years ago, and then actually we just moved out of it. So kind of just a transitional time in our life. So everything's been good. I just try to keep up with Big Brother as much as I can. It's tough, 3 episodes a week. It does not get easier as the cast changes here and there. But yeah, it's been awesome, and I love being part of the community.
So the past 5 years have flown by, but what's been the most challenging part of transitioning back to normal life after Big Brother?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think initially it was difficult. I think the thing is, it's different for each person. For me, I was a bit younger. I was 22 when I went on the show. And so at that time, basically, I just had nothing planned. I just finished college. I was like, all right, what do I do? And I just got like free housing on top of me, free food, and I get to play this game to win 500K. So this idea that, I get to do all this stuff was like a dream come true. So for me, it didn't really change my life trajectory crazy amount wise because I didn't have to pause or stop time. But so adjusting to the real life back afterwards was just kind of, it was difficult at first, but I think in time it got easier. I think initially, right, when you're out of the house trying to figure out how to navigate just this newfound fandom you find. And then also my season was a little interesting in certain ways that where you have to figure out like, are you about your experience essentially, find out the good parts of the experience, put the bad on the side. And so I would say 5 years later though, I mean, I can kind of look back and just appreciate what Big Brother has brought to me, the connections I've made, the people I've made, and also, just like I always laugh because like when we moved to New York City, the person who convinced us was Tommy. He let us stay in his house, essentially his basement of his house, for a month while we looked for a new apartment. So those connections, we probably would have never went to New York if we never met Tommy. We probably never would have met Tommy if it wasn't for Big Brother. And so there's a lot of great things that came out of it.
So living in New York City, you've probably been to a few Big Brother events. I believe I saw you at the BB25 premiere party last year. I don't think we got to officially meet. Were you at the BB26 premiere party this year? I don't remember seeing you.
I was not. No, I was not. I was at 25, I believe. Yeah, and it was a good time. It was a good time. I always like, going to those type of events to see, the fans and also get to enjoy. It's kind of like coming to the new year together, right? It's our weird little show that we all love and watch, and our fandom is a part of it. So again, I was a fan first. So for me, it's kind of a fun thing to go to these events because I get it. Like I understand what it feels like to like see your Big Brother players and be like, wow, that's that person, and in person. So I love being able to be a part of that now.
So who are some of those people that you're like, wow, this is this person that you were able to meet coming to some of these parties?
Oh man. Fortunately, I got to meet most of the people before these parties and on the one-on-one interactions. I think like my first like fan out moment was Janelle. When I first met her, I was like, "Wow, this is the Janelle." Watching so far back, All Stars, I was just taken aback. And then, I mean, she's like any other person in the sense of like she's so down to earth, so sweet, and now we have a great relationship together. So yeah, no, I mean, I think that was probably the person I met that I was like, wow, I'm super excited to meet them. Other players, I mean, and the list kind of goes on and on, but I think, for her, and I met Kaser as well too, both of them together was just like seeing kind of the people you watched growing up and being like, I want to not even play like them, but play with them. So that was very cool.
You could have if you were on All Stars.
I could have, but you know what? I probably for the best I wasn't, and I don't think I would have made the criteria. I'm happy my boy David made it on there.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. So talking about Big Brother 26. So who are your favorite house guests this season?
Uh, um, hmm. I was really riding for T-Core, really loved her. And so I think with on my podcast with David Bloomberg, she was my winner's pick. So I really enjoyed her. I mean, overall, I think it was a really cool group of people. I think it's funny because you never know how it's going to mix up, right? Like I was really, I loved Joseph initially. And then, I was like, what are you doing with your game? And I was like, oh, high and low on it. But yeah, I think Tico was potentially one of my favorites. I love Cedric. Cedric was great. Angela I went back and forth on. And here's the thing: I judge them for their game, right? I judge them for the game, not the persona they put on in the show. I think most of the houses this year, like, were pretty good with each other. I mean, again, you're in a pressure cooker, so you're going to act a certain way in there. Tucker was great to watch. I'm sorry, I'm naming all these different names of people, but it's weird because I didn't have any like straight favorite other than T Core to like win it. Now we're in this final group of people. I'm like, anyone, I guess, kind of could win it with Chelsea having a bigger edge than others. But it's been fun. It's kind of a dynamic season. I kind of love watching it where, like, everyone has a chance. It's always kind of boring when you get to the final five, six, and you're like, no one could beat this person. And right now, I do think Chelsea might be the one to beat. But I think between the other players, Chemo, Rubina, Mackenzie, Cam, shout out to the dogs at the crib, I think they all have a good chance to, like, play against one another.
So who do you think that you'll be voting for America's favorite player, and who do you think is going to win that?
Oh man, that's a good thing. I actually haven't thought about that. I would say I'd probably give America's favorite player. I'd probably give it to Tico. I think Angela probably. Here's the thing: I think Angela's very polarizing. I think she could potentially win it, and I think she could potentially lose it. So, uh, she's probably one of the most entertaining, chaotic house guests we've seen in a very long time. So I'll probably give my vote to like T Core or Matt, not Matt, sorry, excuse me, Tucker, and like maybe share out in the loud, throw Cedric a little vote here too. So we'll see. I don't
Yeah,
think my vote's gonna make much of a difference in this one because I think there's certain people who have a huge popular group of folks. I'd love to see Chemo as well too, but I just don't know if he has a chance in that right now.
yeah, I agree. T-Core and Cedric are also two of my favorites, but I feel like that they're not going to be the top three, so I think voting for them is kind of a waste. I think the top three is definitely going to be Tucker, Angela, and Leah is what I think.
Oh, you think Lee up there? I didn't realize Lee would be up in the three. I was thinking maybe Quinn for a little bit, but I'm not sure. You're much more tapped in than I am in that.
I think people didn't like his screaming in the DR.
That's understandable.
So we just had a double eviction. What were your thoughts on the double eviction? Did you think that was one of the most boring double evictions ever?
I was gutted. I was gutted. I mean, I think seeing Leah go home, I think it was more difficult to see it like going on Mackenzie's HOH and then post her HOH because I just, like many others, I felt like it's probably not the best move for her game at that point, the way she kind of laid it out. These were probably the two people who could work with her the most. Um, I think she's playing for Chelsea's game a little bit at this point. Chelsea is very close to Cam and probably take her over Mackenzie. So I just hate to see that Mackenzie got herself in such a good position actually, and then kind of fumbled it away with this. So yeah, I was sad to see Leah go home, but also not as much because I didn't feel like she really tried as much in this final portion of it to stay there. Seeing Angela go home was tough because at this point I've come around to Angela. At some point I wanted her to just basically like, hey, let's get her out of here, get her out of here. But she somehow made her way to do it. So seeing her, go home kind of takes away the chaotic moment. I think we would have had a really fun final five with her. It would have been great to see maybe Chelsea go home just because it shakes it up. I also have to give like her props. She's done a wonderful job in misting, getting players to like basically play against her game. But yeah, overall, not my favorite double big shit night. But here's the thing: there's a randomness element. You never know what's going to happen.
Do you think that Chelsea should have taken a shot at MJ in the double eviction now that MJ's won HOH? Did she just easily comp her way to the end?
I think it's a tough one to say because I would ordinarily say yes, but I also think Chelsea has Mackenzie's ear. Like I don't even know this week right now, without giving any spoilers out. I don't know what Mackenzie or whoever will do if they come in power. I don't even know if Mackenzie takes a shot at Chelsea. So we're in that situation where who knows what Mackenzie will do truly. And with Chelsea, she just has such a good ability to miss different people. So I think Angela is more of a chaotic element. It's one of those things like go with the enemy you know versus the one you don't know.
So when Leah left the house, she was very excited that she was going to rejoin Quinn. Do you think that this is something that happened in the jury's house? We've seen Derek and Claire or someone get together in the jury house. What do you think of them getting together?
I'm not sure, honestly. It's one of those things that anything can happen in a jury house. We've seen it in the past. Emotions get really interconnected. I do think though, like, it's one of those things they'll probably take it to their time, and whatever happens in jury house might actually not last outside of it. So I think it's something they need to figure out. We've seen Quinn be really into Leah. I don't know how much of that is truly reciprocated. I wish he was a little less into Leah for his own game. And I also think the element of Angela walking right into the house right after Leah might hamper their ability to connect as much.
So you already mentioned that you like Cedric. On your season, you and Sis and Bella were the season's young people. So what are your thoughts on Cedric being this season's young person?
Yeah, no, I think I unfortunately have a bit of PTSD of seeing any young person go into the house because I worry for them. I worry that like there's going to be certain things that are just out of their control, and this is a life experience, honestly, that really works against you in the house. So I was very apprehensive. I liked Cedric. I said that in many ways, but I also was like, really worried that like, hey, it might go out early. I said the same thing for Corey the season before ahead. But to my, I think Cedric navigated that perfectly. I think his social game was wonderful. I think Cedric going home was really everything had to go wrong for him to go home. I think actually he played that pretty fairly well. I was really high on Cedric even when he went home that week. It was kind of a blunder of his closest ally. I believe it was Quinn's HOH he went home on. He should have never been on the block. Don't put your allies on the block. What can I say? Yeah, so for Cedric, I think he played it really well. And I also loved his like energy at post game. I feel like he's been really awesome in the sense of taking everything on the chin, and I wish him the best. I hope we see him on something else. I think he'd be great for it.
Does anyone on this cast remind you of yourself or anybody else from your season?
Um, hmm, that's a good question. I gotta think about that one. I particularly can't say. I mean, sometimes I think there's archetypes that really match each other, right? Like you have really high energy in Quinn that you could probably see in Tommy in shapes and forms. But like I maybe the chaoticness of Angela and Christy might match each other a little bit, but I think they're all a bit of a stretch. I think this is a very different cast from our cast for good reasons, honestly. And it's one of those things. It's to cast different people, and I think we see that this cast. I think we see a really diverse cast from different parts of the world and or of the U.S., which we probably didn't see as much in our season.
So going back to premiere night, the house guests were given the option to vote a 17th house guest into the game. Would you have voted for Ansley to come into the game?
Uh, it's one of those hindsight 2020. I don't think I would, but also at the same time, if you put me in their situation, no, 100% no, I wouldn't have. But now knowing that watching the season, I think it's also important to know how the game is going to game. Like they're going to probably want to put a seventh house guest, 17th house guest, no matter what. So hopefully getting a perk to vote with it. But I do think if I was in their shoes, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, the 17th house guest last year was a big deal. Obviously, they teased it and it was Suri, and they kept teasing it this year. Did you ever think it was going to be a real person like it was Suri last year? It never crossed my mind that it would be AI.
Yeah, no, I didn't expect it to be AI at all either. I think it's one of those things where you're looking at it and you're like, okay, I expect it to be, you just want to bring somebody else. My thing was like, who is it going to be? I was worried it was going to be some sort of vet. I always hate when we bring in past Big Brother players just for like a one person on the season because they're going to get a good amount of protection. As much as I love Suri as well too, I think she's wonderful. I just don't think and she's not truly a Big Brother player. She's a Survivor player, but at the same time, I just don't think it bodes well. And I also think it takes away from the experiences of the new Big Brother house guests. Like, let them have their season.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened to Big Brother 19 with Paul, and he dominated the
Hmm.
season.
Exactly, exactly.
So what do you think of this season's AI theme and the AI arena?
You know what? I like it. I think it really changed up the game a lot. Again, it's tough because it changes the social element of Big Brother and makes it a little bit more competition forward. So I think you have to be very smart in how you enact these competitions. But I will say that I love that it gave these people a chance to play the game a little bit more. You had your backdoor, with the veto where you really didn't get to compete at all. And for me, that's what happened for me. But with this situation, that's kind of given away. So again, it makes it difficult to play the game in certain ways for as a player, but as a viewer, it's incredible. We don't know, like it makes Thursday nights a must watch because you do not know who's going to go home.
How do you think your season would be different if they had the AI arena on your season?
Hmm. I think those are very different. I think it gives people another chance to win it. But knowing my season, every single AI one would be like an endurance competition or something like that. I mean, I think that's when we talk about equitable comps, like like comps that make sure that if we're gonna play a game of like carnival games, right, make sure that everyone can kind of compete in it in some shape or form. If they're all a physical endurance competition, you're only gonna get one group of people to win. This isn't really Survivor, right? So finding a way, even with Survivor, they have the puzzles involved in it, and I love that you now have like basically three sets of things you have to complete within the competition to actually win it. So I think Big Brother's done a great job of moving towards it. The game masters have like found a way to incorporate that. But yeah, I think it would have been really interesting. I think any season incorporated, I think they're gonna find a way to bring this back. It kind of reminds me of the challenge in a little way, right? You go down, and then at the end of the day, you have to compete to get yourself out there. I love the social game and the voting of it, but I think this adds a little bit of flair during that pre-jury portion.
How did you like Janky World? How do you think you would have fared being outside for a week eating only pizza and ice
Oh,
cream?
God, that looked like torture. That looked like absolute torture. And I love pizza and ice cream as the next person, but seeing them basically bottled up in that room, having no ability to really converse much or try to, you don't want to do so much there because anyone can overhear you. So, and I think just the living of it too would have been difficult. So, yeah, no, I don't think I would have fared well in Jinky World.
Who do you think that you would have aligned with if you were on this season?
Oh, man. Huh. You know, I like to say I think Cedric and I would have probably got along as being younger ones, but I also think I really would have probably vibed with T Core, Rubin, that chemo, that group of people. Here, this is like a fun cast that I think there's a really way to like incept yourself into. You know, I like to think I probably would have got along with most folks in there. It's hard to say when you're in the house, right? But yeah, I think it was a good group of people where you had a lot of chances doing some connections, and I also think we saw that in the cast. They got to connect with different people from different groups, and we saw a lot of sub alliances form throughout the whole season.
And how do you think that you would navigate these big characters like Tucker and Angela?
You know what? I think it would have been fun to actually in this thing, and the reason why I say that is because I think every season has their big characters, and I think it just gets a little icky when your big characters just unfortunately don't let other people play in the sense of like they try to put like predisposed rules into the game or just act in a way that's ungame like. And I think we didn't really see too much of that this season. We did, of course, there's going to be the flare ups and things like that, but that's part of Big Brother, right? You hope it stays game. You hope it stays like within that context. So that's what I expected going into my season. That's what I was excited for. I think we unfortunately saw the inverse of that.
Yeah, so this is the second consecutive season with a seven-person jury, where the previous 10 seasons all had nine-person juries. What are your thoughts on seven versus nine-person juries?
It's tough. I get both sides of it. I understand why having seven people you would like that, just because those people see more of the game, and they have a better ability to kind of figure out who can win. By the ninth person going out, they might not have a best viewpoint of who's in control, who's doing this and that, but also they have a huge influence because of the first person on there. Basically, they're learning the game from the other players who are getting voted out. So that's why I understand the nine people. Nine-person jury can be a little difficult. Seven-person jury also allows there to be a little bit more of like it could be a split one. It's a little easier to split a 3-4 versus a 5-4 because of groups and blocks. I also think it takes a lot of strategy to understand who should you send home. Because I mean, right now we look at T Core, Rubin, and Chemo. There's probably a voting block on jury, right? So that's basically half the votes there. So trying to figure out a way to make the final two interesting is important, but also at the same time making it so that hey, we have enough votes where it doesn't become a landslide. Last thing I'll say about this too, I also feel for the players who'd make it like right there on the cusp, eighth and ninth, who probably should be in jury but don't make it to jury. That's kind of a crusher.
Do you think it was a mistake letting the trio of Chemo, Rubin, and Tikor get to the jury, being that they can control half the jury vote, basically?
Oh, I mean, I think if you think you can get them on your side, like Chelsea, I think here's the thing: is Chelsea's driving the show through right now. She is a bit of the mastermind. She's figuring out how to do this and that. So for her, it would have been a bad decision to bring all three of them. But fortunately for her, she's been the one who's been working closest, kind of with that group of people, with T Core and other people. So she wants to bring them there because one, I think she believes she can beat them in ways. Two, she will probably get their votes in a lot of ways too. So it's interesting to see because they have is it inverse, right? it's kind of like I played a lot of playing cards beforehand when I was growing up, whether it's like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc. It's like you need to utilize, get three of these cards out of here, destroy them, and then you get a special power with it. If you don't do that, they're useless. And that's kind of what I feel about the Chemo Rubin and T core is that, hey, to utilize them perfectly for your jury, you need to get all three of them out here. You don't need to get just one or two of them because they're going to go to the other side. Um, and I'm right now really interested to see how Chemo fares up at the end too, because I didn't think he might have as much winner equity, but as we're seeing as the game, people love Chemo between having Rubina, T-Core, and now probably Angela's vote. He would need one more person if he makes it to the final two. So I think it's gonna be hindsight's 2020 and see if it's a mistake or not, but we'll have to come and see.
It's been such an unpredictable season, but what's been the biggest surprise to you watching the new season?
Hmm. I think the biggest surprise was kind of like the AI arena of how it impacted. I mean, I think as Big Brother fans, we're ready for disappointment in so many ways. We're ready to see a twist fall on its face and just be like, oh, why did they do this? Versus the BBA arena was like, wow, this is really cool. More than that, I too really love the editing this season. I feel like we're kind of walking a little bit away from the wackiness of like a camp show versus to keeping that, but also making it like, hey, this is actually a game, a social game, and we can play it. And I love how the editing has been. I think CBS has been kind of on point for that between Paramount and also like all across the whole gambit of reality shows that everyone is pushing out now. So I think that's been the most pleasantly surprising. And then I guess maybe Angela, I think she, like, you can never know what to expect from her.
And you know a lot about a camp show being in a camp comeback.
I do. Unfortunately, I do know what a camp show feels like.
Yeah, and the AI arena that Taryn had said that this was the best twist in years, that they finally came up with a twist that wasn't, bad for the show.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I would have loved seeing something like that. I think also with the version of Camp Comeback we had, I think there's probably a lot of ways we could have utilized that too. Where it's kind of like every week now, the people in Camp Comeback and the person who just got evicted compete in Camp Comeback. Whoever wins stays, whoever loses stays in Camp Comeback. So, say if somebody for like David, for example, he would have had to win each of the Camp Comeback ones, or I would have to win three of them, etc. I think that would have been much more fun to watch as viewers, right? If you're going to keep people there long. So, again, I do think it doesn't have to be in this level of iteration, whereas Camp Comeback, I think there's other ways they can take it and make it happen. But I do think this is like some element they should take this and put it in other future seasons.
Who do you think is currently playing the best game?
I think it would have to be Chelsea right now. I think she is far and above, because she's able to win competitions and also just strategize and ensure like the people around her, like when she should be the biggest threat, but Mackenzie's trusting her, Cam's trusting her, Chemo, and then Rubina basically trust her, it seems like. Maybe Chemo less so, but yeah, I mean, I think what we see from here, unless, somebody takes a stab at her, she's in a very good position and she's played the best game so far.
And would you put your money down right now that she's going to win?
See that the thing is, I would. It's tough to say. I do think she could win right now, but if the house guests really think about it and sit down and are like, hey, none of them can kind of beat her. So she has basically it's 1v4, right? She has done a very good job to make sure each of these four players think that like she's quite close to them and they shouldn't get her out. And then you also have the fear now because unfortunately you have left Rubina and Chemo here so far into the game that they have jury votes back in there. So now I guess if you're Mackenzie, right? Or if you're Cam, I don't think Cam will make a move against Chelsea. I hope he does. I think that would actually be the only way for him to showcase some form of resume on his part. But I do think if you're McKinsey, you're left with a hard decision. Do I get rid of Chelsea right now and leave myself to a 2-2 with basically me, Cam versus Rabina Chemo, with the fear that most likely at that point, I need to make sure that I take Cam to the end and these two go home. Otherwise, there's two votes. Or do you focus on Rubina and Chemo right now? I mean, it's kind of the issue. So Chelsea's put herself in the best position she could be as such a big threat.
And is Chelsea who you want to win of the five remaining?
Yes and no. I think here's the thing is I think Chelsea deserves it 100% if she makes it there. I do think it would make two for a boring final two with Chelsea in there because I do think it should be like a landslide. Maybe only Chemo would be the person that I think could potentially battle her in there. What I think would be more interesting is some form of like a Cam, not sorry, excuse me, Cam, Mackenzie Chemo end because I could see that kind of being go back and forth. It could be a split vote. Um, Yeah, ironically enough to say, I think any version with chemo in the final two would be a very interesting final two. I think Chelsea most likely sweeps otherwise.
Did you make a preseason winner pick?
I did. My preseason winner pick was Tigor.
Mine was Matt, and so people got on me for that one.
Uh yeah, no, it's hey, understandable. I think on paper Matt had everything going well for him. And I think if you put Matt in another season, he probably goes much farther. I don't still I think we see a whirlwind of Angela and she being the only person like who could have like out of all the simulations out there, we got this simulation of it.
In the last three seasons, actually, I picked Xavier Taylor and Jag. So then people really got on me. Oh, you picked the last three winners, right? And then you get to
Oh,
pick the first boo.
hey, three for four isn't bad. That's not a bad batting average.
So is there anything else BB26 you want to talk about before we get into your season a little bit?
You know what? I just say, it's a very fun season to watch. I really think we're seeing a really cool renaissance of Big Brother in the sense that we're getting just like fun gameplay. It's dynamic, and I think the producers and editors are getting it. They're understanding like this is kind of what we want to see. So yeah, no, I think for anybody who's like complaining about Big Brother, they haven't seen like the dark ages of Big Brother. Like we've had a lot worse seasons, and I think also this is a fun final five. I mean, we think about last few Final Fives or fours, right? It's come down to a few people only.
So let's get into your season, Big Brother 21. How many times did you apply for Big Brother before getting on the show?
It was my first time actually applying for Big Brother. Yeah, I applied for Survivor previously, like when I just turned 18 and made it pretty far into the whole casting process. And Survivor was my first love. And so kind of swore it off after that. And then after I graduated college, when I was in like my senior year, my friends like, why don't you just apply for Big Brother? And so that's kind of what I did.
I guess disregarding how your Big Brother season went, but do you wish you would have played Survivor rather than Big Brother?
I mean, I love Survivor. That was kind of like a family affair. Like when my family's from Bangladesh, when they immigrated here, like that was like the first show my mom was watching. So growing up, I watched all of Survivor, seeing the winners from like Richard Hatch to Parvati. So like, it was one of my loves there. I think, by the time I applied for Big Brother, I was definitely in a different mindset for that versus Survivor. But I would always love it, especially now Survivor that is like much lesser days. It'd be fun and kind of enjoyable to do that. So it's we call it we were saying and it's in Hindi essentially, not Bangla, but it's called Dilli Kaludu, and it's like you don't know till you know essentially. So who knows what would have happened either or.
So looking back on your season, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently?
My season of Big Brother, yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of things I wish I did differently on there. I think, thinking back about it, I mean, probably not telling a group of four people or five people that there's a group of eight alliance doing the numbers in my head. I think, I was so excited to be on the show. I think that, 'cause I just like, you find out last minute, essentially. And I was in through the casting process for like 6 months. I just graduated. I walked my graduation stage maybe 2 weeks prior to being like shipped out for Big Brother, or maybe like 9 days. And so I remember having to have my friends come clear out my apartment building because I was gonna leave before it was, the lease was over. So when getting on the show, I was so excited. I think I just like bright eyes, I thought it would be a little different. And then I do think with my cast group of people, it made things a little bit more different than typical Big Brother seasons would have. So I think that combination of being a bit naive, going to like, doe-eyed, so star-eyed, I wish I came into it being like, ready to just cut anybody and everybody.
Has your perception of the game changed now that you're a viewer again rather than a player?
Yeah, in ways for sure. I think I give a lot more just compassion to the players more, so I know what they're going through in ways. I know those initial weeks, right? What it feels like. In my life, fortunately, I never felt so low than when I was in the Big Brother house, where you just, it's one of those things where if you have people you don't like or people you feel like are mistreating you for a number of different reasons, you can get away from them. You can just walk away, and that's what I've done in my life, or you can say something to them. You don't have 500K dangling in front of you. Now it's 750, but at that time 500. So, um, yeah, I think it's one of those things where I've taken back a lot, learned some stuff, but also at the same time, like view the players in a different light for sure.
Have you watched your season back?
I have not, no. I've seen clips and for sure, and those things that, some episodes I felt like I probably wasn't necessary for me to watch back, but as a whole, no, I haven't.
But like even after you were evicted and you went home, you weren't keeping up with the show then, or
I kept up with the show. I think it was tough. I watched like Thursday night episodes, and then kept up with like all the Twitter people kind of giving updates and whatnot. But I think watching it religiously, even post eviction, it was too difficult for me to do.
a question I like to ask everybody is if they ran your season back, if they put 16 of you into the house right now, how do you think your season would be different?
I think it'd be very different. I think if we ran every single, like the whole cast back now, because I think also people probably from last 5 years to now are very different in shape, tape. Like, and I'm not saying like they're internally all different, but I do think they have a different mindset on certain things. And I do think also the way the game is played, the worry about this and that backlash would make people play a different way. Overall, yeah, I think we'd see a different example, or we'd see a total different season. And also there's like different connections too. And I think us knowing each other, I mean, that's like any season, right? I think it would always be funny to see a season just played back right away because now the people you trusted, maybe you might not trust. And I think for our specific one, I think it would almost work inverse of how our winners won. They might be the ones to go out initially first just because of that sentiment.
So David was evicted on night one. However, he was in the cast photo. Was the photo edited, or did he actually bring him back in the house for that photo?
Uh, yeah, I'm trying to think. I think David was edited. Yeah, David was edited in for a couple one some of them. I think there was one cast photo they brought him after he was in camp comeback wise, but yeah, initially we didn't see David in those.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, why didn't they just wait for him to come back if they knew Camp Comeback was a thing? Just edit him in. Why don't they just wait?
No clue. Your guess is as good as mine. I guess maybe timing wise of it all would have been the thing, right? Like because I think by the time camp comeback happened, it was like 7 days in, so maybe they want to get that promo out beforehand, which I get. But yeah, funny decision for sure.
So how frustrating and disappointing was it to lose the battle back competition after being in house for weeks waiting for that competition?
I think for me, it was just full adrenaline, and I also think like I had probably a good chance of winning that competition because I was coming in second. I think I was the only person with 3 balls in. I think he needed 5 total. I think Cliff just cleared that one. That was one he knew super well. And he played in the backyard. He had something made similar to that. So it was really down his alley. But here's the thing, I have no frustration about Cliff. I think I could have been a revolving door. I don't know if I would have lasted the way Cliff was able to. I think all our games were a bit more shot than we realized would be going back into the house. I think for me it was a little bit. I was ready to get out of the house by that time because you're stuck in there. You can't vote. You can't do anything, and all these people you kind of hate them all around you, especially with my season at that point. So, it was a win-win. Somehow, if I stay a little longer, great. If I don't, then I get to get away from all of them. I think for me, I was a little frustrated with the game that we had. I felt like it was such a big build-up for just a little bit of a carnival game. I would have rathered some form of tiered one. And I think I was frustrated too because I was going against Cliff at that point, who was like one of my very few allies. So it was kind of bittersweet knowing that like David, Kemi, or Cliff would, they would, if I make it in, they're going out.
If it wasn't you going back in, did you have a preference of which person you would have wanted to go back in and fight against these people?
It's tough to say because I mean Cliff was kind of the few. I was really happy for Cliff because he was one of the few people that gave me like any form of like while he was in the game attention or he would work with me. And I think there was. I mean even now we have a strong bond, but I have a good bond with all of my castmates of pre-jury essentially, or David, Kemi, and Cliff, let's say. And I think that I would have loved for David to get back into the house at that point too. I think Kemi, I would have been happy for Kemi to be in house. I think at that point she was also checked out, kind of similar to me, where she was like, I'm ready to be done with these people. So yeah, I mean, I think Cliff probably had the best chance to go the farthest and potentially win the game. David, I would have loved to see him get back in there. We saw that with All Stars, though he got a shot. So I would love to see Kemi get some form of, down the line if she wants to do something, whether it's the Big Brother or not. I don't think it's Big Brother, but whatever she gets a chance, I'd love to see her find her way there too.
When you were first evicted and they announced Kim comeback, were you excited the chance of coming back to the game, or at that point did you like just get me out of here? How did you feel about the twist?
Yeah, I think I was really excited because I think for me, like just being voted out that first week, like, and is having a call crush down on me was just so devastating. No one imagines themselves going out that early. I think at that point too, I think for mentally, right? For me, it was really important that I was able to stay a little bit longer, just for the fact for me to see like, and that's not here, and not to say that my game was great or anything like that. I'm not trying to say like, oh, if it was a different cast, I would have won it by any means. No, not at all. But I do think it gave me the ability to see personally firsthand, like, hey, there might be some other factors that are going into like me going out or somebody else going out. So I get to see just like kind of like the other side of some of these players that I don't think I would have seen if I was voted out or if I had to leave without kind of coming back.
So you came back into the house again in week 12 to host a luxury competition. How was that experience? Was it awkward seeing the house guests again after going back to the outside world, knowing everything that happened?
It was tough. It was one of those things where I was like very surprised that they asked because at that point they have never asked a pre-jury member to come back and basically host a competition in the same season they are because more so they're worried that we're going to spill anything. So I had somebody in my ear the whole time saying, "Don't say anything, don't say anything, don't, make sure you do not give away anything to the players." Because for me, I just want to tell Cliff and Nicole, who I was the closest to at that point, like, "Hey, get get him out, get Jackson out. Don't trust him. So I think that was hard seeing them, but also was like cathartic because like getting to see Cliff and Nicole specifically because I was like these are the people I worked with. We had this like stupid little trio of the Power of Zing, which they made an alliance with me while I was out of the house. Essentially, I was ghost mode in Camp Comeback, so it was really cool getting to see them. It was worth it for that.
How many people were left in the game at the point you went back in?
I want to say it was just those four. So it was, and I was trying to go back and remember, but I want to because it was week 12, so it had to be close to that. 'Cause I think Tommy was gone by then. And if he wasn't, he might have still been there. It was either 4 or 5.
Yeah, so in that end game, obviously that you were rooting for Nicole and Cliff. Do you think that Nicole made a mistake at Final Six, putting up Christy and Tommy as opposed to Jackson and Holly?
I think it's a tough one to do. Like you can't tell. Like the odds were against Jackson to comp down. He comped down and won every single thing. If he didn't win one of the comps, he goes out. So like hindsight 2020 on that. Tommy and Christy were front runners to win the game too. I mean, I think if Tommy goes to the end, he beats anybody. He clears. So me and Tommy have gone back and forth on it and stuff like that. I mean, Tommy was incredible at playing the game. He was so good and he was so likable. So I think with the Christie version of it, they also knew the level of control Christie had. So uh, I don't. I think from their POV, we gotta look at it there. I think it was the right move, and they also felt like they could work with Holly and Jackson a little bit better. Which, if anything, they could too. The issue was is that they couldn't beat Jackson in the competition.
So who have you kept in touch with from your season?
Uh, for my season, I've kept up with, let's see, Tommy. I'm pretty close with Tommy, Kat, and then Kemi, David, Jessica, and Cliff. Those 6 people, and I'm trying to think of anybody I might have forgotten. I mean, Holland here and there, but those 6 people I probably keep pretty good like communications with. I mean, typically I'm talking to Kat or Tommy once a week, or uh, and then with David and Kemi, I always keep up with them. I always hear something new with them, especially with Kemi moving and Jessica. Always, we always try to meet up. Especially it was great being in New York for a bit because anytime they would come by, we get to see them.
So there were a lot of controversial figures on your season. Is there anyone that you're like not cool with, or it's 5 years, it's all water under the bridge, or?
I think it's one of those things is that if you hold on to those emotions, right, like it becomes you. And so I think I felt a lot of anger my initial like after coming off the show and like even the first 2 3 years against like people on our show for like, hey, this is how you treated me or this is how you did A, B, and C. But at some point you just have to kind of I'm in a Zen state. I like to say I try not to hold any ill will towards anybody, and that's not to say I'm friends with them or feel any sort of way. Like I don't want to hang out with them. I don't want, but it's one of those things that doesn't cloud my mind. I try not to let because there's just so much more, and the world is so much bigger than Big Brother. And when you think about your life, this is just a small portion of your life, right? And so I think holding on to something like that just becomes unfortunate. Which I get it. I get why some people might do, but I think it becomes detrimental to your own future success.
And a few years ago, the BB21 group chat got leaked. Is that chat still active?
I would hope not. I have no clue. I was not part of that specific group chat and there. I actually do not think I had a single group chat with any people from like that. Yeah, so no, hopefully it's not active. I mean, I think that was just unfortunate to see that, it's not Big Brother 21 is not making the news for any good reasons at that point, right? So I think it was really unfortunate to see people act like that even after post show.
So a year after your season, CBS put the 50% POC initiative. Do you think that your season is what pushed them over the top to making this initiative?
I mean, I don't think it hurt. I think it was probably there was a lot of straws that broke the camel's back, and I think our season definitely was one of them. I mean, you don't want the one reality show that's going 24/7 to just continually give you like bad press, and also like it's one of those things where like when a show comes out or a reality show, there's like an episode it has information. This has live feeds. This has 3 episodes a week. So if you just keep casting bad people, or if you cast people that don't have a understanding of the outside world and other cultures around them, you're going to continuously get, a highlight on bad behavior and just like not even bad behavior here, just like racist acts, And I think we see that from my season, from racism to bias to all that. And like as we move forward and figure out like, what do we want on our television screens, that's probably not it. So I don't know if it was like the sole reason. I think it was probably a lot of things because I think as a whole, if you look at reality TV in the 2000s, looks very different than reality TV in the 2020s. I think it was, you know, I think they were like, we do not need to get ourselves in a position like this ever again. So yeah, I think we did have a part to play, and I like to think it was a bigger part than it might have been. So who knows? That's what I try to tell myself to justify the silver lining of that season.
Yeah, so obviously that you're, I guess, sad that all of that happened at your expense, but are you almost happy it happened so that the initiative happened, and that since then it's been all people of color winners?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and here's the thing: is for me, I'm so happy as people of color winners in ways too, but also at the same time, just a fairness of the game. Like, I don't think you're always going to get a big backlash one way or the other. Some people are like, oh, it's gone too much like this, and that. I would disagree with that completely. I think the game is not garnered for anyone to win it. It's just casting. It makes the game a lot more interesting too. We see that. I don't know if I feel like it's hard to say. I'm like, oh, I'm glad this A, B, and C. I wish we never had to go through with that, Because like for me, it was very difficult to get through with it. And if it was just me going through that, I would be like, all right, yeah, I'm happy it happened in the sense that like we had change. But I do know for other house guests, like I wouldn't want that for any of my other house guests, for my pre-jury people, like Kemi, David, Jessica, who had to face a lot of stuff like that. It's like one of those unfun memories, and it sucks because it takes a good show that you love and makes it like it changes it.
So you and David Bloomberg talk about the Big Brother rules every week and critique the gameplay. How would you rank your season's winner, Jackson, as a winner?
Oh man. It's tough because we have rules, right? And you have to like follow the rules in a sense of ways, but like all the rules were broken for him. So I think he's unfortunately not really, you can't, you know, judge it in so many ways. Overall, I mean, the guy was a specimen, right? He comped his way out. I mean, I think we can all have like rose-blinded eyes. I mean, he won the game, and then if you want to win the game that way, you can. But also, I don't think the way he won the game would be tenable in today's time. I think he got a lot of things that made it easier for him. He got a lot of perks here and there, but he was good at winning competitions. I mean, I think you put Jackson Mickey in any type of competition, probably even today, he probably has a good shot of winning them. But yeah, I just rating him. Hard to say. He won things. I could never be able to do an episode of why he lost because he didn't lose. I think he lost on a bigger stage though.
And what about towards the end game when he broke the have not rule and then they just didn't do anything about it and they got rid of have nots for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think just what I'm saying. It's hard to judge somebody who the rules don't apply to. I think it makes a big factor, and I think there was a lot of. I mean, for his stuff too, I think there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes that were both difficult for him as well, but at the same time, I mean, it's hard to say when you're one side or the other side. I mean, his behavior was just kind of pretty gross throughout the whole season, and he got a pass for that. I think if anyone acts the way he acted now on any season now, they would there would be some repercussions in some shape or form from production or they talk to, so not allowances, and we didn't see that. And I think that's also why we saw a huge change in the entire casting system, people working with Big Brother, etc. Because, excuse me, they realized whether better late than never, but that type of behavior shouldn't be allowed on shows.
So Jackson was also from Nashville. Was this something you and him connected on early in the game? Did you think that this bond could turn into an alliance?
Yeah, for sure. I think I was unfortunately set up to fail in that shape or form because like I was coming straight from University of Tennessee. He came from University. You're talking about Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're both Tennessee boys too, and I'm like coming straight from being like my student government president, where I'm like all rah rah everything UT. I was wearing a damn Tennessee pin going to the house, so like I think this idea of placing another Tennessee person in there, you would think, you'd want to work with them and it would be good. They would have your best benefit for, best perspective to make sure that, hey, we can go farther in the game. That was the opposite for Jackson. Jackson did not want to keep me in the game by any means. And so it kind of worked against me in a big way. But yeah, I thought off the bat, like if you had somebody from your hometown, you went to the same university, you share a lot of, similarities with from that side of points and you go into this house with 16 other random house guests, you would probably think, all right, off the bat, this is something I can connect to. And hopefully I don't have to worry about them week one.
And he at least didn't pick you as one of that first four, David and Kemi and Cliff and Jess. It was probably like, oh, I didn't pick you to get eliminated. So
Yeah, I guess he's like the one minority I don't pick. Basically, I will make sure it's not you. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think he probably has a different version of it, and that's the thing. Is like it was 5 years ago. At this point, I've really moved on from all that. But yeah, it's tough to say. It's tough to say.
so speaking of Nashville, have you ever gotten to connect with any Big Brother players from Nashville?
Uh, I've connected with a good amount of Tennessee players. I'm trying to think of one specifically, Nashville, and for me, it kind of blends in with Survivor folks. There's a lot of Survivor people in Tennessee too, so we've seen a good amount of them. Uh, I think Corey and America, they're in Nashville right now, so we've connected with them for sure. We haven't got to like see them, just because of we live in East Tennessee. So when we came here and we just recently are still moving around, but I'm sure we'll get to see them. But yeah, we've seen a lot of Tennessee folks. They've reached out in the past. I think like Judd was on in from Tennessee. He reached out before we seen him at events, and then yeah, I'm trying to think of other people from here, but a lot of people from the South for sure.
So you were someone that fans thought could be on BB22 All Stars. Did you get a call at all?
I'm just happy for David on that portion of it. I'm just, I was ecstatic that David was a person that would go through for that. And 10 out of 10 times, if I had to be able to do over All Stars again, I would have had David do it because it was a chance for him to prove like he can be on it, he can compete. And, I think he did. He did that. And then he went on different shows to show that, on the challenge USA, he can compete. And so for me, that was kind of just like a full cathartic moment, seeing like a good friend of mine, somebody who went through all this stuff. Like you'll never find me not rooting for it, whether it's Kemi or David. So I'm just happy it played out like that.
And what about Nicole?
I mean, oh yes, I mean Nicole. I think for Nicole, unfortunately, and she'll self-profess this, that it was just probably a little too early for her to go back on there. And it was heartbreaking seeing that, to be honest, because I root for Nicole. I love Nicole, and it's tough because it's kind of when you go back to back, right? She went basically all the way there. And then had all this attention, and to go right back into an All Stars game, which was very much so about like networking, right? And she didn't have the chance really to like really engross herself in there. For David, right? Like he's playing with house money. Like he went out early the first season, so now they're giving him another chance. So he can just kind of do whatever he wants to do, right? And hopefully it works out. For Nicole, she has a reputation to uphold and figure out that's a lot of pressure. So for Nicole, I felt very, it's a different situation, right? So I felt really, I felt bad for her as the way the season played out because it was tough. The cards were stacked against her, but I also think, she learned a lot from that season and then, can appreciate everything moving forward.
Have you been asked to do any other shows? And is there any other shows that you'd be interested in doing?
We've been I've been asked in the past, and it's one of those things. It's just like figuring out what makes sense, and I think I'm just in a different uh stage of life. I was in 22, right out of college, right now then, and didn't have a care for life. And now I'm a little bit older, 27. I'm running my own agency. Have my fiance, we're planning for a wedding, and since then we moved then too. So it was like trying to figure out what makes sense. At that point, it didn't matter. I didn't have to stop a job. I didn't have to quit a job to do this, or I could be gone for 9 months, not 9 months, sorry, 3 months. So now, like, if something popped up, when it has popped up, if it's been like a one-off small thing, great. We love to have like entertain it. But if it's something a bit longer than that, I think it's tough to get away. So never like shutting the door on anything else. But right now, I don't think I could do Big Brother now in my stage of life here. I love watching it, and also I don't think it's the best idea. I think me jumping back on Big Brother, there's probably much more entertaining and better players than me to go back into that house.
But they must be interested in you because they brought you back for that luxury competition. So,
If they need some a cookie baker, maybe. If they need some more food stuff, I got them.
would you be interested in doing reindeer games then?
Oh, Ranger! I think that would be kind of fun too. Highly doubt though. Ranger games is like you're getting your MVPs for that one who don't want to do a full season. I think something like that would be fun because it's very short. It's you're playing these games there, and it can get competitive to a moment where it's fun, but also you're not having to like delve into all this stuff. So yeah, I think something short term like that would be great.
How has your personal life or your career been impacted by your time with Big Brother?
Man, it's been a lot. That's one of the things I'll take back a bit. I think my personal time, I think it opened up my network of friends in this type of world, right? Who've done reality TV, etc. And then just helps you make connections with all across like the whole gambit. So into my professional life, I mean, that's kind of how I started my marketing agency was a lot through my uh the platform Big Brother gave me, and then allowed me to kind of slowly snowball that into other things because it opened up doors. It doesn't mean that like it's really what you make of it, and I think that's what I tell players afterwards. There's many different routes to go through with it. I think you typically see a lot of people get a following and then maybe go into some form of content creation and then kind of stop there, right? But also you can use it to levy it for an interview in some shape or form. There's always a Big Brother fan somewhere out there who watched you who probably is hiring, right? So there's so many different opportunities that you can utilize for it that I was fortunate to kind of work off it. But the same side of the coin, right? If you get bad at it or if you let your bad behavior right there. If you act like a total racist on the show, you're probably not going to get those opportunities afterwards. So, fortunately for me, that wasn't the case.
And something else that changed in your personal life since Big Brother was that you and Hannah got engaged. So do you guys have wedding plans yet?
Yeah, yeah. We actually just set ourselves on a venue for in 2025. I can't give the date out yet, but yeah, no, we're super excited. Wedding planning has been a big part of our life recently now, and it's been fun. It's been fun. I mean, not easy. I think a lot of people always attest that there's going to be this and that there, but fortunately, it's been good. And I think for me, it's like I'm so blessed to have Hannah in my life in the sense that, in all senses actually, but that she was there from the Big Brother days, from before that to now, right? We've been together for almost 7+ years. So, I think when I talk about this Big Brother stuff, she gets it, and so we get to incorporate that. And I'm also excited for like a mini reunion. We'll have a few of our Big Brother alumni, some other folks that we've met through the whole reality TV world from Survivor, Amazing Race at the wedding. So, yeah, I'm excited for that.
What advice do you have for future house guests based on your own experience?
Oh, for future house guests, I think be okay. I will give a before and after. Being before the show, I think for any house guests to go on there, especially I'm going to talk for like young players. 'Cause I think that's my experience I can give to it is just having an idea of preparing for the game, enjoying the moment, but also being just ready for it all, right? Like they always say, expect the unexpected. It's tough to plan for that right there. And I think it's very easy for like a younger player to kind of just play like how Cedric played or even Corey, where they just like and try how I try to shadow bigger players essentially. I would say don't be scared about being confident in yourself, right? Like let yourself, I think for me, that's what I halted. I didn't let myself be me in the house initially because I didn't want to play a game where, I was like, I'm going to be the younger player in the house. I don't want to try taking control. I don't want to try. Just be yourself in a sense. And it's easy because you've been yourself for the entirety of your years of life, right? If you try changing up that in the Big Brother house, it's difficult to keep that going on in a long-term game. So that would be my advice for that. And then post-game show, I would just say be cognizant of like, you're a young person going into this reality TV show, whether you want to work in A, B, and C, be smart about what you talk about on the show and how you reflect that. Just keep in mind that everyone's going to see that. So that's what I would say. I think we've had a lot of younger players on the show not realizing that. And when they leave the show, they're like, wow, okay. So some of the stuff I said on the show is going to come back to bite me because employers might not want to take a risk on you at this point because you're very young. And then you also have such a big baggage on here. So I think just being smart about that to ensure that, like, hey, what are your career goals and your dreams post Big Brother show? And make sure it aligns on the way you act while you're on the show.
And one fan question I had was from Puya from RHEP. He wants to know what RHEP podcaster do you think would be best on Big Brother?
Oh man. That's a good one. I feel like I say Puya now. I think he would be kind of killer on it.
You're just
What
saying that
about?
because he asked the question.
I know, I know. I'm glad he asked that. No, I think he actually would be very good at the show. It's tough, right? You never know who's going to be good or not. I think I, you know who I'd love to see on the show? I don't know if they'd be good or not, but I need to see them on the show just so I can make episodes. I need to see David Bloomberg on the show. I need him to have the old white man cast on there so I can finally do the rules and we can see if David will break the rules or if he can coexist with other people in there. I think that'd be really fun.
Has he ever expressed interest in going on the show, or?
You'd have to ask him. I think, I think he would be definitely down for it. I don't know how if he's applied. And the thing is, I know Survivor, I think was his first love. I mean, he's been in this game for a very long time. I do think David would find a way to make himself work well in this house or the island. And regardless, it'd be fun to see.
And do you have any upcoming projects or events that you're excited to share with your fans?
Oh, I do, but I unfortunately cannot share anything today. We're still working on every single thing there too. But no, I'm just excited. I mean, I hope people can keep up with me and Hannah on our socials. You can find us on Instagram at Ovi Kabir, and Twitter at the Ovi Kabir. Trying to get that at Ovi Kabir on all platforms, but it's tough. Some people take that name surprisingly. And then we just got you. One thing is, I think people who follow us know that Big Brother now has become just kind of a closet part of our life where we love showing it. In like these type of interviews where I do my weekly interviews with David Bloomberg, where we talk about evicted house guests. But overall, we try to show other parts of our life, wedding planning, from our moving process to, just like life in general. So I love that we have been able to find a lane where we can showcase our life, but also show our love for Big Brother too.
All right, Ovi, thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure to catch up with you, get your insights in the game, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you for having me.